9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, everybody. How's it going? Welcome back to the next installment of Cooking the Books. How's everybody's week going? So the last 2 days, including today, it has been basically nonstop rain. Okay, I can't say nonstop or basically. It's been raining off and on throughout the days. And then it chooses today to shine right on me. That's why I look like a ghost again. But you want to see a cool trick? What's up? I practically disappeared. Is it creepy? I feel like it's creepy. And if you can hear my brother being a snot in the background, just ignore him. He likes to eavesdrop on my streams. It's rude. See, look, kind of normal lighting. And then I disappear. Let's see. Had a bit of a chaotic week at work, so I'm a little tired today. But I hope everybody's doing well. I am excited to distract myself from real life shit by continuing to read such a fun book because I'm having a lot of fun with it. And we only just started, so this is going to be great. Maybe the hat. I should tilt my head. Nope, other way. I don't know. Should I be a wigger? God. I really do glow in the light. All right, let's say hi to chat, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me. What's up, Goddess? Sorry, I kind of blinded myself for a second there. And Prof, hello. Nice and rude of you. And I wasn't late. I was right on time. Thank you very much. I pride myself on trying to do that. Hey, Dom. How's it going? Fractured. What's up? I saw how excited you were for this, so good to see you. And Static, hi. I didn't ignore your Rumble comments, Dom. I showed you my proof. What's up, Clinton? How's it going? Welcome. You're here on time. Sam, what's up? I don't know if I should acknowledge you half the time because of that last part of your comment. It's kind of rude. Hopefully most of you are listening and not watching, as like half my face disappears in the sun. Ridiculous. What's up, Kel? How's it going? I love how excited you guys are for this. It's so funny to me. Oh no, it's been cloudy for the last 2 days because of all of the rain. And then the heavens opened and sunshine just shone through all of the clouds just for me to read. Just in time. Glorious. Hopefully I haven't blinded all of you. Let's see. You are ridiculous. Rough. You're welcome, Sam. I'm trying to avoid it as much as possible, so I'm like half out of frame. I could put a curtain up, but I don't feel like it because it's behind my desk, which has all 3 of my monitors, and then the desk is right up on this refrigerator that everybody likes to make jokes about. And then the other side is our standing freezer. So I'm not capable of doing that by myself, at least. Yeah, let's call it the spotlight. That's what it is. Yeah, when I say that I glow in the light, I am not kidding. And I'm basically translucent. A wigger. Wigger. You heard me. Now, that's just rude. That can't be the only options. Can't you, like, call me Tinkerbell or something? She sparkles. Ah, but you see, that phrase you state is key. They can be bastards. I have stated this multiple times, but that does not define them as such, where they are always bastards. Sam holds to the fact that they are always bastards, and all of them are, which is not the truth. But they're the best. Don't make me keep doing it, Sam. Oh, wait, I was going to keep doing it anyway. To be raptured would mean that you're actually going to heaven, right? For like the verb. I believe that is correct, and I doubt that. What? I don't know if I want to interpret that. I don't ignore people's comments. I might skip a few because I'm not going to focus on one person. That was a while ago, but you sent it in Discord, right? Was it Discord or was it Twitter? All right, does everybody remember where we were at? What happened? There's a lot of things that happened, huh? I don't know if my recap will do it justice. There was that little girl that got attacked by the... God, I'm so fucking white. There's like no definition. This is cool and ridiculous and weird and creepy at the same time. But anyway, sorry. I got distracted. Should probably just look at the camera. I'll look at the camera. Fine. Let me just sit back like this. Let's see. So we got like the very first shot where, well, sort of. So like the InGen incident where a kid got killed basically by the raptor. And instead of how the first movie opens up, you're not seeing it happen. You see the aftermath of it when they try to save his life, but they can't. And you learn that they're trying to cover it up, right? This is all happening in Costa Rica. And then it skips to this family that is in another area of Costa Rica where they go to like this remote beach and their daughter gets attacked by a lizard, or what she thinks is a lizard that's walking on its hind legs. And the doctors, there's one doctor that's basically like an expert that thinks it's this specific species, but the description is a little off. They don't quite trust it because she's a traumatized little girl, but they do like cultures and blood tests and stuff, and those get sent off. The doctor, after the girl gets discharged and whatnot, he goes out and he wants to find like an actual lizard because he had his suspicions and whatnot. So he goes to the beach that she was attacked at, and he doesn't see one of the lizards until a monkey has one in its mouth, and he shoots the monkey with like half a tranquilizer or something. Monkey drops the lizard and runs off. So he bags it and tags it, sends it to the States. And you see all these different pieces coming together where people are just like thinking that it's this lizard. It's nothing. It's just a weird situation that's kind of been happening where a few people have been getting bitten, but it's just allergic reactions that should be rare, but who knows? And like deforestation comes into play where new habitats join like different areas and all of that. And then someone sees the drawing of the lizard and is just like, "Oh, who drew the dinosaur? Your niece or something?" This is in the States. And the guy's just like, "It's not a dinosaur, it's a lizard." And she's like, "No, I'm pretty sure. Look, it's got a long neck," and all these different details. And her son is really into dinosaurs, shocking enough. She keeps insisting, but he doesn't want to look into it. And that's kind of basically where we're at. We did get sort of the scene from the movie with, oh, y'all are going to destroy me. I'm not good with character names. Sadler? Rattler? God dang it. Michael, what are the names of the doctors in Jurassic Park? The doctors in Jurassic Park, or the anthropologists. Grant is one of them. What's the other one? The chick. You guys know her name. I don't need to say it. We meet them, but it's actually the lawyer that comes out first. And Grant recounts the story of how he kind of got involved with Hammond's company. Sattler. Okay, I was right. Okay, I was saying it slightly off. So I did remember both of them. Yay, I didn't need my Google brother. Thank you, Fractured. yeah, and so we kind of get introduced to them via the lawyer and him recounting this story. And they part ways because the lawyer, the firm, is suspicious of the activities that InGen is doing activities, whatever, actioning. And yeah, so the lawyer wanted to know more information from Grant to see maybe if he knew what was going on and why they're stocking up on so much amber, because it's not worth money. But they're bringing in a bunch of generators, and it's highly suspicious, and they don't want a company to go into these third world countries like Costa Rica and take advantage of them because they're doing research that the United States is more strict about. That's essentially where we're at and where we left off, as far as I recall. If there's anything else, y'all let me know in the comments. Plot twist, this the monkey from Outbreak. Thanks, Kel. Let's see what Legata said. Let's see. A bastard is someone whose parental units are unwed when they were born. I don't recall any cats being wed, so don't. Excuse me, sir. Rude. Even though one of my cats is technically named because he's a bastard from the streets in the north. Doesn't apply. That's one definition, okay? One. And you don't know if they didn't have a kitty cat marriage. You can't speak meow or nya in Japanese. Don't you start. You're supposed to be on my side, sir. My kitchen? What the fuck are you talking about? This is my dining room. When did you add a bookshelf to your kitchen? Where is your fridge? I could turn and show you my refrigerator. Then you'll see the rest of my house, which is messy. And hi, Shock. How's it going? Did anyone else come in and I missed them? Technically, my brother named the cat. Okay. Thank you very much, Static. He was off with Grant getting a phone call from Alice Levin at Columbia asking him to look at a sample. And Alice is the one that thinks that it's a dinosaur, if I recall correctly. There's a reggae rapper named Snow. So he's a black cat. It's a funny name to name a black cat Snow, but it's also because we're in like sort of in the north-ish. And we got him off the streets, not from like a store. He was just a stray cat that a coworker, her daughter, it was in her neighborhood, and they believe that the owners just threw him over a fence to get rid of him. And so he just became like a neighborhood stray, and no one could take him in. And it was about to be winter. She posted about it on Facebook back when I still was on Facebook. And yeah, which wasn't sadly that long ago. It was in 2018. Gross. I still only used it to watch like cat videos and such. Nice. I feel like that one might be taken a different way than Snow, but nice either way. All right, everybody ready to get back into it? I am. So let's do it to it. So we are still in the second iteration. If you didn't watch last week or you don't recall, the book is separated out in 7 iterations that have multiple chapters within it. So I'm just going to read those chapters. I might chit chat a little bit about them in between, but I'm not going to do like a next chapter clip every time. I'm basically going to do that between the iterations. So we are in the 2nd iteration, Skeleton. Ellie Sattler brushed a strand of blonde hair back from her face and turned her attention to the acid baths. She had 6 in a row at molar strengths from 5 to 30%. She had to keep an eye on the stronger solutions because they would eat through the limestone and begin to erode the bones. And infant dinosaur bones were so fragile. She marveled that they had been preserved at all after 80 million years. She listened idly as Grant said, "Miss Levin, this is Alan Grant. What's this about? You have what? A what?" He began to laugh. "Oh, I doubt that very much, Miss Levin. No, I really don't have time. I'm sorry." "Well, I'd take a look at it, but I can pretty much guarantee it's a basilisk lizard," which is the lizard that the doctor thought it was, but had his suspicions. It was weird. "But yes, you can do that. All right, send it now." Grant hung up and shook his head. "These people." Ellie said, "What's it about?" "Some lizard she's trying to identify," Grant said. "She's going to fax me an x-ray." He walked over to the fax and waited as the transmission came through. "Incidentally, I've got a new find for you. A good one." "Yes?" Grant nodded. "Found it just before the kid showed up. On South Hill, Horizon 4. Infant velociraptor. Jaw and complete dentition, so there's no question about identity. And the site looks undisturbed. We might even get a full skeleton." "That's fantastic," Ellie said. "How young?" "Young," Grant said. 2, maybe 4 months at most. "And it's definitely a velociraptor?" "Definitely," Grant said. "Maybe our luck has finally turned." For the last 2 years at Snakewater, the team had excavated only duck-billed hadrosaurs. They already had evidence for vast herds of these grazing dinosaurs, roaming the Cretaceous plains in groups of 10 or 20,000, as buffalo would later roam. But increasingly, the question that faced them was, where were the predators? They expected predators to be rare, of course. Studies of predator-prey populations in the game parks of Africa and India suggested that, roughly speaking, there was 1 predatory carnivore for every 400 herbivores. That meant a herd of 10,000 duckbills would support only 25 tyrannosaurs. So it was unlikely that they would find the remains of a large predator. But where were the smaller predators? Snakewater had dozens of nesting sites. In some places, the ground was literally covered with fragments of dinosaur eggshells. And many small dinosaurs ate eggs. Animals like Dromaeosaurus, Oviraptor, Velociraptor, and Colurus, predators 3 to 6 feet tall, must have been found here in abundance. But they had discovered none so far. Perhaps this Velociraptor skeleton did mean their luck had changed. And an infant. Ellie knew that one of Grant's dreams was to study infant rearing behavior in carnivorous dinosaurs, as he had already studied the behavior of herbivores. Perhaps this was the first step toward that dream. "You must be pretty excited," Ellie said. Grant didn't answer. "I said you must be excited," Ellie repeated. "My God," Grant said. He was staring at the facts. Ellie looked over Grant's shoulder at the x-ray and breathed out slowly. "You think it's an Amascus?" "Amassicus. Ha, it's an Amassicus." "Yes," Grant said, "or a Triassicus. The skeleton is so light." "But it's no lizard," she said. "No," Grant said, "this is not a lizard. No 3-toed lizard has walked on this planet for 200 million years." Ellie's first thought was that she was looking at a hoax, an ingenious, skillful hoax, but a hoax nonetheless. Every biologist knew that the threat of a hoax was omnipresent. The most famous hoax, the Piltdown Man, had gone undetected for 40 years, and its perpetrator was still unknown. More recently, the distinguished astronomer Fred Hoyle had claimed that a fossil-winged dinosaur, Archaeopteryx, Don't judge me. On display in the British Museum was a fraud. It was later shown to be genuine. The essence of a successful hoax was that it presented scientists with what they expected to see, and to Ellie's eye, the X-ray image of the lizard was exactly correct. The three-toed foot was well balanced, with the medial claw smallest. The bony remnants of the fourth and fifth toes were located up near the metatarsal joint. The tibia was strong and considerably longer than the femur. At the hip, the acetabellum was complete. The tail showed 45 vertebrae. It was a young Procompsognathus. Could this X-ray be faked? I don't know, Grant said, but it's almost impossible to fake an X-ray. And Procompsognathus is an obscure animal. Even people familiar with dinosaurs have never heard of it. Ellie read the note. Specimen acquired on the beach of Cabo Blanco, July 16. Apparently a howler monkey was eating the animal, and this was all that was recovered. Oh, and it says the lizard attacked a little girl. I doubt that, Grant said, but perhaps. Procompsognathus was so small and light we assume it must be a scavenger, only feeding off dead creatures. And you can tell the size, he measured quickly. It's about 20 centimeters to the hips, which means the full animal would be about a foot tall. About as big as a chicken. Even a child would look pretty fearsome to it. It might bite an infant, but not a child. Ellie frowned at the X-ray image. You think this could really be a legitimate rediscovery? She said. Like the coelacanth? Maybe, Grant said. The coelacanth was a 5-foot-long fish thought to have died out 65 million years ago, until a specimen was pulled from the ocean in 1938. But there were other examples. The Australian mountain pygmy possum was known only from fossils until a live one was found in a garbage can in Melbourne. And a 10,000-year-old fossil fruit bat from New Guinea was described by a zoologist who not long afterward received a living specimen in the mail. But could it be real? She persisted. What about the age? Grant nodded. The age is a problem. Most rediscovered animals were rather recent additions to the fossil record, 10 or 20,000 years old. Some were a few million years old. In the case of the coelacanth, 65 million years old. But the specimen they were looking at was much, much older than that. Dinosaurs had died out in the Cretaceous period 65 million years ago. They had flourished as the dominant life form on the planet in the Jurassic 190 million years ago. And they had first appeared in the Triassic, roughly 220 million years ago. It was during the early Triassic period that Procompsognathus had lived, a time so distant that our planet didn't even look the same. All the continents were joined together in a single landmass called Pangaea, which extended from the north to the South Pole, a vast continent of ferns and forests with a few large deserts. The Atlantic Ocean was a narrow lake between what would become Africa and Florida. The air was denser, the land was warmer. There were hundreds of active volcanoes, and it was in this environment that Procompsognathus lived. Well, Ellie said, we know animals have survived. Crocodiles are basically Triassic animals living in the present. Sharks are Triassic, so we know it has happened before. Grant nodded, and the thing is, he said, how else do we explain it? It's either fake, which I doubt, or else it's a rediscovery. What else could it be? The phone rang. Alice Levin again, Grant said. Let's see if she'll send us the actual specimen. He answered it and looked at Ellie, surprised. Yes, I'll hold for Mr. Hammond. Yes, of course. Hammond? What does he want? Ellie said. Grant shook his head and then said into the phone, Yes, Mr. Hammond. Yes, it's good to hear your voice too. Yes. He looked at Ellie. Oh, you did? Oh, yes. Is that right? He cupped his hand over the mouthpiece and said, Still as eccentric as ever. You've got to hear this. Grant pushed the speaker button and Ellie heard a raspy old man's voice speaking rapidly. Hell of an annoyance from some EPA fellow. Seems to have gone off half-cocked, all on his own, running around the country talking to people, stirring up things. I don't suppose anybody's come to see you way out there? As a matter of fact, Grant said, somebody did come to see me. Hammond snorted. I was afraid of that smart-ass kid named Morris. Yes, his name was Morris, Grant said. He's going to see all our consultants, Hammond said. He went to see Ian Malcolm the other day. You know, the mathematician in Texas? That's the first I knew of it. We're having one hell of a time getting a handle on this thing. It's typical of the way government operates. There isn't any complaint, there isn't any charge, just harassment from some kid who's unsupervised and is running around at the taxpayer's expense. Did he bother you? Disrupt your work? No, he didn't bother me. Well, that's too bad, in a way, Hammond said, because I'd try and get an injunction to stop him if he had. As it is, I had our lawyers call over at EPA to find out what the hell their problem is. The head of the office claims he didn't know there was any investigation. You figure that one out. Damn bureaucracy is all it is. Hell, I think this kid's trying to get down to Costa Rica, poke around, get onto our island. You know we have an island down there? No, Grant said, looking at Ellie. I didn't know. Oh, yes, we bought it and started our operation, 4 or 5 years ago now. I forget exactly. Called Isla Nublar. Big island, 100 miles offshore. Going to be a biological preserve. Wonderful place. Tropical jungle. You know, you ought to see it, Dr. Grant. Sounds interesting, Grant said, but actually, it's almost finished now, you know, Hammond said. I've sent you some material about it. Did you get my material? No, but we're pretty far from... Maybe it'll come today. Look it over. The island's just beautiful. It's got everything. We've been in construction now 30 months. You can imagine. Big park. Opens in September next year. You really ought to go see it. It sounds wonderful, but as a matter of fact, Hammond said, I'm going to insist you see it, Dr. Grant. I know you'd find it right up your alley. You'd find it fascinating. I'm in the middle of... Grant said... Say, I'll tell you what, Hammond said, as if the idea had just occurred to him. I'm having some of the people who consulted for us go down there this weekend. Spend a few days and look it over. At our expense, of course. It'd be terrific if you'd give us your opinion. I couldn't possibly, Grant said. Oh, just for the weekend, Hammond said, with the irritating, cheery persistence of an old man. That's all I'm talking about, Dr. Grant. I wouldn't want to interrupt your work. I know how important that work is. Believe me, I know that. Never interrupt your work. But you could hop on down there this weekend and be back on Monday. No, I couldn't, Grant said. I've just found a new skeleton and... Yes, fine, but I still think you should come, Hammond said, not really listening. And we've just received some evidence for a very puzzling and remarkable find, which seems to be a living precomps... Okay, now they're changing. Sorry, guys. I hit the space bar and it played the clip again. Precompsognathid is the new word. A what? Hammond said, slowing down. I didn't quite get that. You said a living precompsognathid? Nothid? That's right, Grant said. It's a biological specimen, a partial fragment of an animal collected from Central America, a living animal. You don't say, Hammond said. A living animal? How extraordinary. Yes, Grant said, we think so too. So, you see, this isn't the time for me to be leaving. Central America, did you say? Yes. Where in Central America is it from? Do you know? A beach called Cabo Blanco. I don't know exactly where. I see. Hammond cleared his throat. And when did this specimen arrive in your hands? Just today. Today. I see. Today. I see. Yes. Hammond cleared his throat again. Grant looked at Ellie and mouthed, what's going on? Ellie shook her head. Sounds upset. Grant mouthed, see if Morris is still here. She went to the window and looked out, but Morris's car was gone. She turned back. On the speaker, Hammond coughed. Dr. Grant, have you told anybody about it yet? No. Good. That's good. Well, yes, I'll tell you frankly, Dr. Grant, I'm having a little problem about this island. This EPA thing is coming at just the wrong time. How's that? Grant said. Well, we've had our problems and some delays. Let's just say that I'm under a little pressure here, and I'd like you to look at this island for me. Give me your opinion. I'll be paying you the usual weekend consultant rate of $20,000 a day. That'd be $60,000 for 3 days. And if you can spare Dr. Sattler, she'll go at the same rate. We need a botanist. What do you say? Ellie looked at Grant as he said, well, Mr. Hammond, that much money would fully finance our expeditions for the next 2 summers. Good, Hammond said blandly. He seemed distracted now, his thoughts elsewhere. I want this to be easy. Now, I'm sending the corporate jet to pick you up at that private airfield east of Shoto. You know the one, I mean. It's only about 2 hours drive from where you are. You be there at 5 p.m. tomorrow, and I'll be waiting for you. Take you right down. Can you and Dr. Sattler make that plane? I guess we can. Good. Pack lightly. You don't need passports. I'm looking forward to it. See you tomorrow, Hammond said, and he hung up. Give me a second. If you can even see me, at least you can hear me, right? Sure, static. We'll go with that. I just really like the clip. Just going to go back to comments. Cohen, Swain, and Ross. Midday sun streamed into the San Francisco law offices of Cohen, Swain, and Ross, giving the room a cheerfulness that Donald Gennaro did not feel. He listened on the phone and looked at his boss, Daniel Ross, cold as an undertaker in his dark pinstripe suit. I understand, John, Gennaro said. And Grant agreed to come? Good, good. Yes, that sounds fine to me. My congratulations, John. He hung up the phone and turned to Ross. We can't trust Hammond anymore. He's under too much pressure. The EPA is investigating him. He's behind schedule on his Costa Rican resort, and the investors are getting nervous. There have been too many rumors of problems down there. Too many workmen have died, and now this business about a living precomposite whatever on the mainland. What does that mean? Ross said. Maybe nothing, Gennaro said. But Hamachi is one of our principal investors. I got a report last week from Hamachi's representative in San Jose, the capital of Costa Rica. According to the report, some new kind of lizard is biting children on the coast. Ross blinked. New lizard? Yes, Gennaro said. We can't screw around with this. We've got to inspect that island right away. I've asked Hammond to arrange independent site inspections every week for the next 3 weeks. And what does Hammond say? He insists nothing is wrong on the island, claims he has all these security precautions. But you don't believe him, Ross said. No, Gennaro said, I don't. Donald Gennaro had come to Cohen Swain from a background in investment banking. Cohen Swain's high-tech clients frequently needed capitalization, and Gennaro helped them find the way. One of his first assignments back in 1982 had been to accompany John Hammond while the old man, then nearly 70, put together the funding to start the InGen Corporation. They eventually raised almost $1 billion, and Gennaro remembered it was a wild ride. Hammond's a dreamer, Gennaro said. A potentially dangerous dreamer, Ross said. We should never have gotten involved. What is our financial position? The firm, Gennaro said, owns 5%. General or limited? General. Ross shook his head. We should never have done that. It seemed wise at the time, Gennaro said. Hell, it was 8 years ago. We took it in lieu of some fees. And if you remember, Hammond's plan was extremely speculative. He was really pushing the envelope. Nobody really thought he could pull it off. But apparently he has, Ross said. In any case, I agree that an inspection is overdue. What about your site experts? I'm starting with experts Hammond already hired as consultants early in the project. Gennaro tossed a list onto Ross's desk. First group is a paleontologist, a paleobotanist, and a mathematician. They go down this weekend. I'll go with them. Will they tell you the truth? Ross said. I think so. None of them have much to do with the island, and one of them, the mathematician, Ian Malcolm, was openly hostile to the project from the start, insisted it would never work, could never work. And who else? Just a technical person, the computer system analyst. Review the park's computers and fix some bugs. He should be there by Friday morning. Fine, Ross said. You're making the arrangements? Hammond asked to place the calls himself. I think he wants to pretend that he's not in trouble, that it's just a social invitation, showing off his island. All right, Ross said. But just make sure it happens. Stay on top of it. I want this Costa Rican situation resolved within a week. Ross got up and walked out of the room. Gennaro dialed, heard the whining hiss of a radio phone. Then he heard his voice say, Grant here. a voice say? Hi, Dr. Grant. This is Donald Gennaro. Sorry, the sun is like right in my eyes, so it's throwing me off. Hi, Dr. Grant. This is Donald Gennaro. I'm the general counsel for InGen. We talked a few years back. I don't know if you remember. I remember, Grant said. Well, Gennaro said, I just got off the phone with John Hammond, who tells me the good news that you're coming down to our island in Costa Rica. Yes, Grant said. I guess we're going down there tomorrow. Well, I just want to extend my thanks to you for doing this on short notice. Everybody at InGen appreciates it. We've asked Ian Malcolm, who, like you, was one of the early consultants, to come down as well. He's the mathematician at UT in Austin. John Hammond mentioned that, Grant said. Well, good, Gennaro said, and I'll be coming too, as a matter of fact. By the way, this specimen you have found of a what is it? Okay, and then now they go back to the other saying. Procompsognathus, Grant said. Yes. Do you have the specimen with you, Dr. Grant? The actual specimen? No, Grant said. I've only seen an x-ray. The specimen is in New York. A woman from Columbia University called me. Well, I wonder if you could give me the details on that, Gennaro said. Then I can run down that specimen for Mr. Hammond, who's very excited about it. I'm sure you want to see the actual specimen, too. Perhaps I can even get it delivered to the island while you're all down there, Gennaro said. Grant gave him the information. Well, that's fine, Dr. Grant, Gennaro said. My regards to Dr. Sattler. I look forward to meeting you and him tomorrow. And Gennaro hung up. Plans. This just came, Ellie said the next day, walking to the back of the trailer with a thick manila envelope. One of the kids brought it back from town. It's from Hammond. Grant noticed the blue and white InGen logo as he tore open the envelope. Inside, there was no cover letter, just a bound sack of paper. Pulling it out, he discovered it was blueprints. They were reduced, forming a thick book. The cover was marked Isla Nublar Resort Guest Facilities, full set Safari Lodge. What the hell is this? He said. As he flipped open the book, a sheet of paper fell out. Dear Alan and Ellie, as you can imagine, we don't have much in the way of formal promotional materials yet, but this should give you an idea of the Isla Nublar project. I think it's very exciting. Looking forward to discussing this with you. Hope you can join us. Regards, John. I don't get it, Grant said. He flipped through the sheets. These are architectural plans. He turned to the top sheet. All right, let's see. It's just a bunch of names. So there's the Visitor Center / Lodge. And then Isla Nublar Resort. Let's see. InGen Inc., Palo Alto, California. Dunning Murphy and Associates, New York. Richard Murphy, blah, 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 blah. So client, architects, engineers, landscaping, electrical, computer. And then it has a bunch of names like Harlow, Whitney, and Fields from Boston for the engineers. And then A.T. Mishikawa, Osaka, mechanical engineer. Shepperton Rogers from London. A. Ashikiga, H. Ieyasu, Kanazawa. Those are all landscaping. And then for electrical, there's Kobayashi from Tokyo, A.R. Makasawa, senior consultant. And for the computer, CC, I don't know what computer C/C means, but I'm assuming some of the engineers for that. Integrated Computer Systems, Cambridge, Massachusetts. Dennis Nedry, project supervisor. Grant turned to the plans themselves. They were stamped Industrial Secrets, Do Not Copy, and Confidential Work Product, Not for Distribution. Each sheet was numbered, and at the top, these plans represent the confidential creations of InGen Inc. You must have signed document 112/4A, or you risk prosecution. Looks pretty paranoid to me, he said. Maybe there's a reason, Ellie said. The next page was a topographical map. It showed Isla Nublar as an inverted teardrop. bulging at the north, tapering at the south. The island was 8 miles long, and the map divided it into several large sections. The northern section was marked Visitor Area, and it contained structures marked Visitor Arrivals, Visitor Center / Administration, Power Desalinization Support, Hammond Res, and Safari Lodge. Grant could see the outline of a swimming pool, the rectangles of tennis courts, and the round squiggles that represented planting and shrubbery. Looks like a resort, all right, Ellie said. There followed detail sheets for the Safari Lodge itself. In the 11 sketches, the elevation sketches, the lodge looked dramatic, a long, low building with a series of pyramid shapes on the roof. But there was little about the other buildings in the visitor area. And the rest of the island was even more mysterious. As far as Grant could tell, it was mostly open space, a network of roads, tunnels, and outlying buildings, and a long, thin lake that appeared to be man-made, with concrete dams and barriers. But for the most part, the island was divided into big, curving areas with very little development at all. Each area was marked by codes. I am so not reading those codes. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 different codes, and they all look like a bunch of algebra problems that wouldn't really make sense if I read them to you. Is there an explanation for the codes? She said. Grant flipped the pages rapidly, but he couldn't find one. Maybe they took it out, she said. I'm telling you, Grant said, paranoid. He looked at the big curving divisions, separated from one another by the network of roads. There were only 6 divisions on the whole island, and each division was separated from the road by a concrete moat. Outside each moat was a fence with a little lightning sign alongside it. That mystified them until they were finally able to figure out it meant the fences were electrified. How? Why wouldn't you know that? Come on. They're smart. That's odd, she said. Electrified fences at a resort? Miles of them, Grant said. Electrified fences and moats together, and usually with a road alongside them as well. Just like a zoo, Ellie said. They went back to the topographical map. Topographical map. And looked closely at the contour lines. The roads had been placed oddly. The main road ran north to south, right through the central hills of the island, including one section of road that seemed to be literally cut into the side of a cliff above a river. It began to look as if there had been a deliberate effort to leave these open areas as big enclosures, separated from the roads by moats and electric fences. And the roads were raised up above ground level so you could see over the fences. You know, Ellie said, some of these dimensions are enormous. Look at this. This concrete moat is 30 feet wide. That's like a military fortification. So are these buildings, Grant said. He had noticed that each open division had a few buildings, usually located in out-of-the-way corners, but the buildings were all concrete with thick walls. In side view elevations, they looked like concrete bunkers with small windows, like the Nazi pillboxes from old war movies. At that moment, they heard a muffled explosion, and Grant put the papers aside. Back to work, he said. Fire! There was a slight vibration, and then yellow contour lines traced across the computer screen. This time, the resolution was perfect, and Alan Grant had a glimpse of the skeleton, beautifully defined, the long neck arched back. It was unquestionably an infant velociraptor, and it looked imperfect. The screen went blank. I hate computers, Grant said, squinting in the sun. What happened now? Lost the integrator input, one of the kids said. Just a minute. The kid bent to look at the tangle of wires going into the back of the battery-powered portable computer. They had set the computer up on a beer carton on top of Hill 4, not far from the device they called Thumper. Grant sat down on the side of the hill and looked at his watch. He said to Ellie, we're going to have to do this the old-fashioned way. One of the kids overheard. Aw, Alan. Look, Grant said, I've got a plane to catch, and I want the fossil protected before I go. Once you began to expose a fossil, you had to continue or risk losing it. Visitors imagine the landscape of the Badlands to be unchanging, but in fact, it was continuously eroding, literally right before your eyes. All day long, you could hear the clatter of pebbles rolling down the crumbling hillside, and there was always the risk of a rainstorm. Even a brief shower would wash away a delicate fossil. Thus, Grant's partially exposed skeleton was at risk, and it had to be protected until he returned. Fossil protection ordinarily consisted of a tarp over the site and a trench around the perimeter to control water runoff. The question was how large a trench the Velociraptor fossil required. To decide that, they were using computer-assisted sonic tomography, or CAST. This was a new procedure in which Thumper fired a soft lead slug into the ground, setting up shock waves that were read by the computer and assembled into a kind of X-ray image of the hillside. They had been using it all summer with varying results. Thumper was 20 feet away now, a big silver box on wheels with an umbrella on top. It looked like an ice cream vendor's pushcart, parked incongruously on the Badlands. Thumper had 2 youthful attendants loading the next soft lead pellet. So far, the CAST program merely located the extent of finds, helping Grant's team to dig more efficiently. But the kids claimed that within a few years, it would be possible to generate an image so detailed that excavation would be redundant. You could get a perfect image of the bones in 3 dimensions, and it promised a whole new era of archaeology without excavation. But none of that had happened yet, and the equipment that worked flawlessly in the university laboratory proved pitifully delicate and fickle in the field. That's pretty much how that always goes for a lot of things. How much longer? Grant said. We got it now, Alan. It's not bad. Grant went to look at the computer screen. He saw the complete skeleton traced in bright yellow. It was indeed a young specimen, the outstanding characteristic of Velociraptor, the single-toed claw, which in a full-grown animal was a curved 6-inch-long weapon capable of ripping open its prey, was in this infant no larger than the thorn on a rose bush. It was hardly visible at all on the screen. And Velociraptor was a lightly built dinosaur in any case, an animal as fine-boned as a bird, and presumably as intelligent. Here the skeleton appeared in perfect order, except that the head and neck were bent back toward the posterior. Such neck flexion was so common in fossils that some scientists had formulated a theory to explain it, suggesting that the dinosaurs had become extinct because they had been poisoned by the evolving alkaloids in plants. The twisted neck was thought to signify the death agony of the dinosaurs. Grant had finally put that one to rest by demonstrating that many species of birds and reptiles underwent a post-mortem contraction of posterior neck ligaments, which bent the head backward in a characteristic way. It had nothing to do with the cause of death. It had to do with the way a carcass dried in the sun. Grant saw that this particular skeleton had also been twisted laterally, so that the right leg and foot were raised up above the backbone. It looks kind of distorted, one of the kids said, but I don't think it's the computer. No, Grant said, it's just time. Lots and lots of time. Grant knew that people could not imagine geological time. Human life was lived on another scale of time entirely. An apple turned brown in a few minutes. Silverware turned black in a few days. A compost heap decayed in a season. A child grew up in a decade. None of these everyday human experiences prepared people to be able to imagine the meaning of 80 million years, the length of time that had passed since this little animal had died. In the classroom, Grant had tried different comparisons. If you imagined the human lifespan of 60 years was compressed to a day, then 80 million years would still be 3,652 years, older than the pyramids. The Velociraptor had been dead a long time. Doesn't look very fearsome, one of the kids said. He wasn't, Grant said, at least not until he grew up. Probably this baby had scavenged, feeding off carcasses slain by the adults, after the big animals had gorged themselves and lay basking in the sun. Carnivores could eat as much as 25% of their body weight in a single meal, and it made them sleepy afterward. The babies would chitter and scramble over the indulgent, somnolent bodies of the adults and nip little bites from the dead animal. The babies were probably cute little animals. But an adult velociraptor was another matter entirely. Pound for pound, a velociraptor was the most rapacious dinosaur that ever lived. Although relatively small, about 200 pounds, the size of a leopard, velociraptors were quick, intelligent, and vicious, able to attack with sharp jaws, powerful clawed forearms, and the devastating single claw on the foot. The velociraptors hunted in packs, and Grant thought it must have been a sight to see a dozen of these animals racing at full speed, leaping onto the back of a much larger dinosaur, tearing at the neck and slashing at the ribs and belly. "We're running out of time," Ellie said, bringing him back. Grant gave instructions for the trench. From the computer image, they knew the skeleton lay in a relatively confined area. A ditch around a 2-meter square would be sufficient. Meanwhile, Ellie lashed down the tarp that covered the side of the hill. Grant helped her pound in the final stakes. "How did the baby die?" one of the kids asked. "I doubt we'll know," Grant replied. "Infant mortality in the wild is high. In African parks, it runs as 70% among some carnivores. It could have been anything: disease, separation from the group, anything. Or even attack by an adult. We know these animals hunted in packs, but we don't know anything about their social behavior in a group. You're about to learn." The students nodded. They had all studied animal behavior, and they knew, for example, that when a new male took over a lion pride, the first thing he did was kill all the cubs. The reason was apparently genetic. The male had evolved to disseminate his genes as widely as possible, and by killing the cubs, he brought all the females into heat so that he could impregnate them. It also prevented the females from wasting their time nurturing the offspring of another male. Perhaps the velociraptor hunting pack was also ruled by a dominant male. They knew so little about dinosaurs, Grant thought. After 150 years of research and excavation all around the world, they still knew almost nothing about what the dinosaurs had really been like. "We've got to go," Ellie said, "if we're going to get to Shoto by 5. Yeah, Dom, I hate humans sometimes because of things like this. One thing I forgot to tell y'all, if you so feel, there is a link pinned to the top of chat for my stream elements. If anyone feels like donating, it would be appreciated, but it is not an obligation. So, moving on. Snow like cocaine. I don't know what you're talking about, Sam. I'm carrying on. I feel like this might be an insult because of my colored hair, I guess. It's like half an insult. But thanks, Shock. No, see, that's if they have catnip. Just say compies. Make that easier. I'll try to remember that, Fractured. Hi, Sherry. How's it going? Welcome. Sorry, I did not see you earlier. It's raining here now. Out of nowhere, dude. It probably was sent from us. Now I see blue sky and clouds, and the sun is still peering through at times. My bad, Kel. I might have sent it your way. You know what? You should blame Sam. I'm assuming it rained up there first, so he sent it to me and then sent it to you. Blame Sam. That scene plays out so much better here in the book without Grant threatening some random kid for saying the raptor doesn't look very scary. I don't know. I feel like I might have too much nostalgia to be able to agree or disagree with that. Because I enjoy that scene. Like, he's more of a professor in the book. But I don't know. I feel like in the movie it's more real. Because he's a bit smarmy with it. But it does get the point across. Across? I just said across. God, what am I, Dermy? What's wrong with me? Ugh. Shock laughs in cat. Poli-sci degree and a Mark's tattoo. No, thank you. What's up, James? Welcome. How's it going? Oh, Shock is saying that he'll take the blame too. Okay. So you can blame Shock and Sam. Mm-hmm. Definitely don't blame me. I did not send it to you. Mm-hmm. Haha, you're in the desert. But see, Dom, we both have not read the book had not read the book prior to the movie. I wonder if that's more of a nostalgia thing for those in the book camp versus the movie camp, which is preferred. See, I'm too used to my sarcastic family to where the scene in the movie, I think, resonates more with me. Because it would be how, like, my brother or my dad, probably even my mom, might do that. Educate the child. Nice. Well, thank you for multitasking in part with me. I appreciate it. Let me see. Or it's different from the book to movie. Yeah, there was a longer comment, I think, up there. I'm just skimming, Dom. My video's lagging. Boo. Yeah, I am fuzzy, huh? Can you at least still hear me, guys? Oh, I think it might be getting better. Oh. I have 2 bars instead of the 1. Well, as long as you can still hear me, that's what you're here for, right? Ew, gross. Gross, Shock. What is wrong with you? Freaking R. Kelly over here. Okay, good. You can still hear me. Yay. That's all I need to know. Now, I need to make sure my stuff is working properly. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it looks like I came back. No longer fuzzy. Aw, thanks, James. He's from just outside of LA, so yeah, that does track, I guess. And he laughs in Kitty Cat again. I mean, is it? Like, I wonder if R. Kelly was with P. Diddy. Is it really better? P. Diddy might have been doing the same stuff. R. Kelly might. I mean, there were other accusations of R. Kelly, too, weren't there? Mm-hmm. I'm thinking about doing these watch-alongs. I know we all have seen the movie, but you want to do a watch-along for the movie when we finish? Yeah, we could totally do that. I'm fine with that. I mean, it's kind of an obligation, don't you think? It's freaking Jurassic Park. Like, if we finish the book, why the hell would we not watch the movie? Seems a little silly. And you don't bother me. Shut the hell up. Not you guys. My stupid brother. Gross. Well, gross. Gross. Just gross, Kel. God damn it. Okay, I'm going to go warm up my tea. I will be right back. I don't remember what my avatar is, so have fun. If totally boobs. You know what? I really just need to get one of those like USB plug-in warmers for coffee mugs and tea and whatnot. That way I don't have to go nuke it during these streams. This is going to be way too hot to drink. I'll drink in a moment. So do you guys, actually, let me go back to that page and show you kind of what it looks like. Do you guys want me to like show you this type of stuff or read it? So it will be hard to show you. There we go. Focus. Because that's all it was me reading the names of like this chart. Like I can show you later on, there's going to be actual charts and things like that. But that was actual people and words to read. Just let me know. I don't know which is better because it's more of a visual thing than anything else. I really want my tea. Of course it did. Well, basically, it was just one side was like the job listing and the other side was just a list of the names. You got the gist of it, I'm sure. Frustrating. Are you guys talking about the P. Diddy stuff? Yeah, I have. So I used to dog sit for a bunch of coworkers, and she wasn't my boss at the time, but she's my boss now. When I would dog sit for her, she had one that was just like a mug size, and it just looks like a coaster, but it's a coaster that you plug in and it keeps your stuff warm. So I would always use that when I worked from her house. So. I don't want to do. Oh, yes, that is a good reminder. So I still don't know if this will get taken down maybe later down the road. But it does seem that YouTube is keeping it up while I stream it. So we're going to move forward as if it's okay with YouTube, even though this book is not in public domain, technically speaking. Now, literally speaking, I don't know why I said technically. It's not in public domain. Okay, so funny. No. Though she used to be a reporter in the East, in Boston back in the day. So she was a sports reporter. So she did rub shoulders with people in the sports world. Okay. Okay. How's my... Let me go back again. Who knew? I almost lost my page. So this, hopefully I stay in focus. Hello. It's not going to focus very well, but it's just a list of names. So here's the jobs, and then here's the names. Do you guys want me to just show those instead of read those? You don't really need to know. Even though showing as just demonstrated doesn't really do much either. You just let me know. I guess I could... I don't know if any of you actually care this much, but I like... Never mind, I'm not going to say what I was just about to say. I like asking your opinion. Let's see if that worked. Okay, cool. You guys just let me know what you want me to do with stuff like that. Yeah, and that's what I assume and what I would argue would be considered fair use anyway. Not that I'm some sort of lawyer or anything. But yeah. I'm not talking to you, Dom, but you could put your opinion. Like, if you didn't have the book with you, what would you prefer I do? Show the chart or read? It's not even a chart. I don't even know what to call that. The list. Is that what I put in the poll? Whatever. Doesn't matter. Let's move on. And I'll check back in on it maybe in the middle when I'm reading stuff. Hammond. Gennaro's secretary bustled in with a new suitcase. It still had the sales tags on it. You know, Mr. Gennaro, she said severely, when you forget to pack, missing comma, it makes me think you don't really want to go on this trip. Maybe you're right, Gennaro said. I'm missing my kid's birthday. Saturday was Amanda's birthday, and Elizabeth had invited 20 screaming 4-year-olds to share it, as well as Cappy the clown and a magician. His wife hadn't been happy to hear that Gennaro was going out of town. Neither had Amanda. Well, I did the best I could on short notice, his secretary said. There's running shoes your size and khaki shorts and shirts and a shaving kit. A pair of jeans and a sweatshirt if it gets cold. The car is downstairs to take you to the airport. You have to leave now to make the flight. She left. Gennaro walked down the hallway, tearing the sales tags off the suitcase. As he passed the all-glass conference room, Dan Ross left the table and came outside. Have a good trip, Ross said, but let's be very clear about one thing. I don't know how bad this situation actually is, Donald. But if there's a problem on that island, burn it to the ground. Jesus, Dan, we're talking about a big investment. Don't hesitate. Don't think about it. Just do it. Hear me? Gennaro nodded. I hear you, he said, but Hammond, screw Hammond, Ross said. My boy, the familiar raspy voice said. How have you been, my boy? I can't imitate a raspy voice, so I guess if I don't clear my throat, I might be able to. Very well, sir, Gennaro replied. He leaned back in the padded leather chair of the Gulfstream II jet as it flew east toward the Rocky Mountains. You never call me anymore, Hammond said reproachfully. I've missed you, Donald. How is your lovely wife? She's fine. Elizabeth's fine. We have a little girl now. Wonderful, wonderful. Children are such a delight. She'd get a kick out of our new park in Costa Rica. Gennaro had forgotten how short Hammond was. As he sat in the chair, his feet didn't touch the carpeting. He swung his legs as he talked. I may or may not know what that's like. There was a childlike quality to the man, even though Hammond must now be, 75, 76? Something like that. He looked older than Gennaro remembered, but then Gennaro hadn't seen him for almost 5 years. Hammond was flamboyant, a born showman, and back in 1983, he had an elephant that he carried around with him in a little cage. The elephant was 9 inches high and a foot long, and perfectly formed, except his tusks were stunted. Hammond took the elephant with him to fundraising meetings. Gennaro usually carried it into the room, the cage covered with a little blanket like a tea cozy, and Hammond would give his usual speech about the prospects for developing what he called consumer biologicals. Wow. I am struggling today. Then, at the dramatic moment, Hammond would whip away the blanket to reveal the elephant, and he would ask for money. The elephant was always a rousing success. Its tiny body, hardly bigger than a cat's, promised untold wonders to come from the laboratory of Norman Atherton, the Stanford geneticist who was Hammond's partner in the new venture. But as Hammond talked about the elephant, he left a great deal unsaid. For example, Hammond was starting a genetics company, but the tiny elephant hadn't been made by any genetic procedure. Atherton had simply taken a dwarf elephant embryo and raised it in an artificial womb with hormonal modifications. That in itself was quite an achievement, but nothing like what Hammond hinted had been done. Also, Atherton hadn't been able to duplicate his miniature elephant, and he'd tried. For one thing, everybody who saw the elephant wanted one. Then, too, the elephant was prone to colds, particularly during winter. The sneezes coming through the little trunk filled Hammond with dread, and sometimes the elephant would get his tusks stuck between the bars of the cage and snort irritably as he tried to get free. Sometimes he got infections around the tusk line. Hammond always fretted that his elephant would die before Atherton could grow a replacement. Hammond also concealed from prospective investors the fact that the elephant's behavior had changed substantially in the process of miniaturization. The little creature might look like an elephant, but he acted like a vicious rodent, quick-moving and mean-tempered. Hammond discouraged people from petting the elephant to avoid nipped fingers. If that's not foreshadowing, I don't know what is. And although Hammond spoke confidently of $7 billion in annual revenues by 1993, his project was intensely speculative. Hammond had vision and enthusiasm, but there was no certainty that his plan would work at all, particularly since Norman Atherton, the brains behind the project, had terminal cancer, which was the final point Hammond neglected to mention. Even so, with Gennaro's help, Hammond got his money. Between September of 1983 and November of 1985, John Alfred Hammond and his pachyderm portfolio raised $870 million in venture capital to finance his proposed corporation, International Genetic Technologies, Inc., and they could have raised more, except Hammond insisted on absolute secrecy, and he offered no return on capital for at least 5 years. That scared a lot of investors off. In the end, they'd had to take mostly Japanese consortia. The Japanese were the only investors who had the patience. Sitting in the leather chair of the jet, Gennaro thought about how evasive Hammond was. The old man was now ignoring the fact that Gennaro's law firm had forced this trip on him. Instead, Hammond behaved as if they were engaged in a purely social outing. "It's too bad you didn't bring your family with you, Donald," he said. Gennaro shrugged. "It's my daughter's birthday. 20 kids already scheduled. The cake and the clown. You know how it is." "Oh, I understand," Hammond said. "Kids set their hearts on things." "Anyway, is the park ready for visitors?" Gennaro asked. "Well, not officially," Hammond said, "but the hotel is built, so there is a place to stay. And the animals?" "Of course, the animals are all there, all in their spaces." Gennaro said, "I remember in the original proposal you were hoping for a total of 12. Oh, we're far beyond that. We have 238 animals, Donald." 238? The old man giggled, pleased at Gennaro's reaction. "You can't imagine it. We have herds of them." 230. How many species? 15 different species, Donald. "That's incredible," Gennaro said. "That's fantastic. And what about all the other things you wanted? The facilities, the computers?" "All of it. All of it," Hammond said. "Everything on that island is state of the art. You'll see for yourself, Donald. It's perfectly wonderful. That's why this concern is so misplaced. There's absolutely no problem with the island." Gennaro said, "Then there should be absolutely no problem with an inspection." "And there isn't," Hammond said, "but it slows things down. Everything has to stop for the official visit. You've had delays anyway. You've postponed the opening." "Oh, that." Hammond tugged at the red silk handkerchief in the breast pocket of his sport coat. "It was bound to happen. Bound to happen." "Why?" Gennaro asked. "Well, Donald," Hammond said, "to explain that, you have to go back to the initial concept of the resort. The concept of the most advanced amusement park in the world, combining the latest electronic and biological technologies. I'm not talking about rides. Everybody has rides. Coney Island has rides. And these days, everybody has animatronic environments. The haunted house, the pirate den, the Wild West, the earthquake. Everyone has those things. So we set out to make biological attractions, living attractions, attractions so astonishing they would capture the imagination of the entire world." Gennaro had to smile. It was almost the same speech, word for word, that he had used on the investors so many years ago. "And we can never forget the ultimate object of the project in Costa Rica, to make money," Hammond said, staring out the windows of the jet. "Lots and lots of money." "I remember," Gennaro said. "And the secret to making money in a park," Hammond said, "is to limit your personnel costs. The food handlers, ticket takers, cleanup crews, repair teams. To make a park that runs with minimal staff. That was why we invested in all the computer technology. We automated wherever we could." "I remember, but the plain fact is," Hammond said, "when you put together all the animals and all the computer systems, you run into snags. Whoever got a major computer system up and running on schedule? Nobody I know." "So you've just had normal startup delays?" "Yes, that's right," Hammond said. "Normal delays." "I heard there were accidents during construction," Gennaro said. "Some workmen died?" "Yes, there were several accidents," Hammond said, "and a total of 3 deaths. 2 workers died building the cliff road. One other died as a result of an earth mover accident in January. But we haven't had any accidents for months now." He put his hand on the younger man's arm. "Donald," he said, "believe me when I tell you that everything on the island is going forward as planned. Everything on that island is perfectly fine." The intercom clicked. The pilot said, "Seat belts, please. We're landing in Shoto." Give me a moment. Sorry, my brother needed assistance. At least it was the end of a chapter, so I'll just start the next one, which is entitled Shoto. Do any of you know where Shoto, Montana is? Do you even know how it's spelled? Besides Dom, I don't need your smartass comment, Dom. Dry plains stretched away toward distant black buttes. The afternoon wind blew dust and tumbleweed across the cracked concrete. Grant stood with Ellie near the Jeep and waited while the sleek Grumman jet circled for landing. I hate to wait on the money men, Grant grumbled. Ellie shrugged. Goes with the job. Shut up, Shock. I don't need your smartass comments either. Although many fields of science, such as physics and chemistry, had become federally funded, paleontology remained strongly dependent on private patrons. Quite apart from his own curiosity about the island in Costa Rica, Grant understood that if John Hammond asked for his help, he would give it. That was how patronage worked, how it had always worked. The little jet landed and rolled quickly toward them. Ellie shouldered her bag. The jet came to a stop, and a stewardess in a blue uniform opened the door. Inside, he was surprised at how cramped it was, despite the luxurious appointments. Grant had to hunch over as he went to shake Hammond's hand. Dr. Grant and Dr. Sattler, Hammond said, it's good of you to join us. Allow me to introduce my associate, Donald Gennaro. Gennaro was a stocky, muscular man in his mid-30s, wearing an Armani suit and wire-framed glasses. Grant disliked him on sight. It's an interesting description for the comparison to the movie lawyer. He shook hands quickly. When Ellie shook hands, Gennaro said in surprise, "You're a woman." "These things happen," she said, and Grant thought, she doesn't like him either. Hammond turned to Gennaro. You know, of course, what Dr. Grant and Dr. Sadler do. They're paleontologists. They dig up dinosaurs. And then he began to laugh as if he found the idea very funny. Take your seats, please, the stewardess said, closing the door. Immediately, the plane began to move. You'll have to excuse us, Hammond said, but we are in a bit of a rush. Donald thinks it's important we get right down there. The pilot announced 4 hours flying time to Dallas, where they would refuel and then go on to Costa Rica, arriving the following morning. And how long will we be in Costa Rica? Grant asked. Well, that really depends, Gennaro said. We have a few things to clear up. Take my word for it, Hammond said, turning to Grant. We'll be down there no more than 48 hours. Grant buckled his seatbelt. This island of yours that we're going to, I haven't heard anything about it before. Is it some kind of secret? In a way, Hammond said. We have been very, very careful about making sure nobody knows about it until the day we finally open that island to a surprised and delighted public. The Biosyn Target of Opportunity. New chapter. The Biosyn Corporation of Cupertino, California, had never called an emergency meeting of its board of directors. The 10 directors now sitting in the conference room were irritable and impatient. It was 8 p.m. They had been talking among themselves for the last 10 minutes, but slowly had fallen silent, shuffling papers, looking pointedly at their watches. What are we waiting for? One asked. One more. Lewis Dodson said. We need one more. I hate the spelling of Dodson in the book, by the way. I think it's supposed to be Dodgson? Dogson? Whatever. He glanced at his watch. Ron Meyer's office had said he was coming up on the 6 o'clock plane from San Diego. He should be here by now, even allowing for traffic from the airport. You need a quorum? Another director asked. Yes, Dodson said, we do. That shut them up for a moment. A quorum meant that they were going to be asked to make an important decision, and God knows they were, although Dodson would have preferred not to call a meeting at all. But Steingarten, the head of Biosyn, was adamant. "You'll have to get their agreement for this one, Lou," he had said. Depending on who you talk to, Lewis Dodson was famous as the most aggressive geneticist of his generation, or the most reckless. 34, balding, hawk-faced, and intense, he had been dismissed by Johns Hopkins as a graduate student for planning gene therapy on human patients without obtaining the proper FDA protocols. Hired by Biosyn, he had conducted the controversial rabies vaccine test in Chile. Now he was the head of product development at Biosyn, which supposedly consisted of reverse engineering, taking a competitor's product, tearing it apart, learning how it worked, and then making your own version. In practice, it involved industrial espionage, much of it directed toward the InGen Corporation. In the 1980s, a few genetic engineering companies began to ask, what is the biological equivalent of a Sony Walkman? These companies weren't interested in pharmaceuticals or health. They were interested in entertainment, sports, leisure activities, cosmetics, and pets. The perceived demand for consumer biologicals in the 1990s was high. InGen and Biosyn were both at work in this field. Biosyn had already achieved some success engineering a new pale trout under contract to the Department of Fish and Game of the state of Idaho. This trout was easier to spot in streams and was said to represent a step forward in angling. At least, it eliminated complaints to the Fish and Game Department that there were no trout in the streams. The fact that the pale trout sometimes died of sunburn and that its flesh was soggy and tasteless was not discussed. Biosyn was still working on that, and the door opened, and Ron Meyer entered the room, slipped into a seat. Dodson now had his quorum. He immediately stood. "Gentlemen," he said, "we're here tonight to consider a target of opportunity, InGen." Dodson quickly reviewed the background. InGen's startup in 1983 with Japanese investors, the purchase of 3 Cray XMP supercomputers, the purchase of Isla Nublar in Costa Rica, the stockpiling of amber, the unusual donations to zoos around the world, from the New York Zoological Society to the Ranthambore Wildlife Park in India. I feel like I should know how to say that. Either way. Despite all these clues, Dodson said we still had no idea where InGen might be going. The company seemed obviously focused on animals, and they had hired researchers with an interest in the past, paleobiologists, DNA phylogeneticists, and so on. Then, in 1987, InGen bought an obscure company called Millipore Plastic Products in Nashville, Tennessee. This was an agribusiness company that had recently patented a new plastic with the characteristics of an avian eggshell. This plastic could be shaped into an egg and used to grow chick embryos. Starting the following year, InGen took the entire output of this Millipore plastic for its own use. Dr. Dodson, this is all very interesting. At the same time, Dodson continued, construction was begun on Isla Nublar. This involved massive earthworks, including a shallow lake 2 miles long in the center of the island. Plans for resort facilities were let out with a high degree of confidentiality, but it appears that InGen has built a private zoo of large dimensions on the island. One of the directors leaned forward and said, "Dr. Dodson, so what?" "It's not an ordinary zoo," Dodson said. "This zoo is unique in the world." It seems that InGen has done something quite extraordinary. They have managed to clone extinct animals from the past. What animals? Animals that hatch from eggs and that require a lot of room in a zoo. What animals? Dinosaurs, Dodson said. They are cloning dinosaurs. The consternation that followed was entirely misplaced in Dodson's view. The trouble with money men was that they didn't keep up. They had invested in a field, but they didn't know what was possible. In fact, there had been discussion of cloning dinosaurs in the technical literature as far back as 1982. With each passing year, the manipulation of DNA had grown easier. Genetic material had already been extracted from Egyptian mummies and from the hide of a quagga, a zebra-like African animal that had become extinct in the 1880s. By 1985, it seemed possible that quagga DNA might be reconstituted and a new animal grown. If so, it would be the first creature back from extinction solely by reconstruction of its DNA. If that was possible, what else was also possible? The mastodon, the saber-toothed tiger, the dodo, or even a dinosaur? I don't know about the dodo. Dermy exists. Of course, no dinosaur DNA was known to exist anywhere in the world. But by grinding up large quantities of dinosaur bones, it might be possible to extract fragments of DNA. Formerly, it was thought that fossilization eliminated all DNA. Now that was recognized as untrue. The amount of missing commas in some of these sentences is driving me crazy. Just saying. If enough DNA fragments were recovered, it might be possible to clone a living animal. Back in 1982, the technical problems had seemed daunting, but there was no theoretical barrier. It was merely difficult, expensive, and unlikely to work. Yet it was certainly possible if anyone cared to try. InGen had apparently decided to try. What they have done, Dodson said, is build the greatest single tourist attraction in the history of the world. As you know, zoos are extremely popular. Last year, more Americans visited zoos than all professional baseball and football games combined. Gay. I hate zoos. And the Japanese love zoos. There are 50 zoos in Japan and more being built. And for this zoo, InGen can charge whatever they want. $2,000 a day, $10,000 a day. And then there's the merchandising, the picture books, t-shirts, video games, caps, stuffed toys, comic books, and pets. Pets? Of course, if InGen can make full-size dinosaurs, they can also make pygmy dinosaurs as household pets. What child won't want a little dinosaur as a pet? I would love, if it didn't kill me, to have a dinosaur as a pet. I'm just saying. And I'm not a child. A little patented animal for their very own. InGen will sell millions of them, and InGen will engineer them so that these pet dinosaurs can only eat InGen pet food. Jesus, somebody said. Exactly, Dodson said. The zoo is the centerpiece of an enormous enterprise. You said these dinosaurs will be patented? Yes. Genetically engineered animals can now be patented. The Supreme Court ruled on that in favor of Harvard in 1987. InGen will own its dinosaurs, and no one else can legally make them. What prevents us from creating our own dinosaurs? Someone said. Nothing, except that they have a 5-year start. It'll be almost impossible to catch up before the end of the century. He paused. Of course, if we could obtain examples of their dinosaurs, we could reverse engineer them and make our own, with enough modifications in the DNA to evade their patents. Can we obtain examples of their dinosaurs? Dodson paused. I believe we can, yes. Somebody cleared his throat. There wouldn't be anything illegal about it. Oh no, Dodson said quickly. Nothing illegal. I'm talking about a legitimate source of their DNA. A disgruntled employee or some trash improperly disposed of, something like that. Do you have a legitimate source, Dr. Dodson? I do, Dodson said. But I'm afraid there is some urgency to the decision, because InGen is experiencing a small crisis, and my source will have to act within the next 24 hours. A long silence descended over the room. The men looked at the secretary, taking notes, and the tape recorder on the table in front of her. I don't see the need for a formal resolution on this, Dodson said. Just a sense of the room as to whether you feel I should proceed. Slowly, the heads nodded. Nobody spoke. Nobody went on record. They just nodded silently. Thank you for coming, gentlemen, Dodson said. I'll take it from here. Airport. Louis Dodson entered the coffee shop in the the departure building of the San Francisco airport and looked around quickly. His man was already there, waiting at the counter. Dodson sat down next to him and placed the briefcase on the floor between them. "You're late, pal," the man said. He looked at the straw hat Dodson was wearing and laughed. "What is this supposed to be, a disguise?" "You never know," Dodson said, suppressing his anger. For 6 months, Dodson had patiently cultivated this man, who had grown more obnoxious and arrogant with each meeting. But there was nothing Dodson could do about that. Both men knew exactly what the stakes were. Bioengineered DNA was, weight for weight, the most valuable material in the world. A single microscopic bacterium, too small to see with the naked eye, but containing the genes for a heart attack enzyme, streptokinase? I hate Latin, and I'm pretty sure this is Latin. Or for ice minus, which prevented frost damage to crops, might be worth $5 billion to the right buyer. And that fact of life had created a bizarre new world of industrial espionage. Dodson was especially skilled at it. In 1987, he convinced a disgruntled geneticist to quit Satis for Biosyn and take 5 strains of engineered bacteria with her. The geneticist simply put a drop of each on the fingernails of one hand and walked out the door. But InGen presented a tougher challenge. Dodson wanted more than bacterial DNA. He wanted frozen embryos, and he knew InGen guarded its embryos with the most elaborate security measures. To obtain them, he needed an InGen employee who had access to the embryos, who was willing to steal them, and who could defeat the security. Such a person was not easy to find. Dodson had finally located a susceptible InGen employee earlier in the year. Although this particular person had no access to genetic material, Dodson kept up the contact, meeting the man monthly at Carlos and Charlie's in Silicon Valley, helping him in small ways. And now that InGen was inviting contractors and advisors to visit the island, it was the moment that Dodson had been waiting for, because it meant his man would have access to embryos. "Let's get down to it," Dodson said. "I've got 10 minutes before my flight." "You want to go over it again?" Dodson said. "Hell no, Dr. Dodson," the man said. "I want to see the damn money." Dodson flipped the latch on the briefcase and opened it a few inches. The man glanced down casually. "That's all of it?" "That's half of it. $750,000. "Okay, fine." The man turned away, drank his coffee. "That's fine, Dr. Dodson." Dodson quickly locked the briefcase. "That's for all 15 species, you remember." "I remember. 15 species, frozen embryos. And how am I going to transport them?" Dodson handed the man a large can of Gillette foamy shaving cream. "That's it?" "That's it." "They may check my luggage." Dodson shrugged. "Press the top," he said. The man pressed it, and white shaving cream puffed into his hand. "Not bad." He wiped the foam on the edge of his plate. "Not bad." "The can's a little heavier than usual, is all." Dodson's technical team had been assembling it around the clock for the last 2 days. Quickly, he showed him how it worked. "How much coolant gas is inside?" "Enough for 36 hours. The embryos have to be back in San Jose by then." "That's up to your guy in the boat," the man said. "Better make sure he has a portable cooler on board." "I'll do that," Dodson said. "And let's just review the bidding." "The deal is the same," Dodson said. $50,000 on delivery of each embryo. If they're viable, an additional $50,000 each." "That's fine. Just make sure you have the boat waiting at the east dock of the island Friday night. Not the north dock, where the big supply boats arrive. The east dock. It's a small utility dock. You got that?" "I got it," Dodson said. "When will you be back in San Jose?" "Probably Sunday," the man pushed away from the counter. Dodson fretted. "You're sure you know how to work the—" "I know," the man said. "Believe me, I know." "Also," Dodson said, "we think the island maintains constant radio contact with InGen corporate headquarters in California, so look, I've got it covered," the man said. "Just relax and get the money ready. I want it all Sunday morning in San Jose Airport in cash." "It'll be waiting for you," Dodson said. "Don't worry." The writing style is interesting here. I feel like sometimes there's unnecessary "Dodson said," "the man said," or like they put it in the wrong spot. So like there'll be an ellipses at the end of the sentence because he's being interrupted by the other person. But when you're reading it aloud, or just in general, if you put Dodson said at the end of it, especially when reading aloud, it interrupts the flow of the conversation. It's weird. It should like start the sentence that way and then have the person talk and be interrupted by the next person's sentence. So it's interesting. It's not bad by any means. It's just interesting. Okay, let's see. Where mini elephant sneezes. Okay, y'all are having some weird ass conversations in here. Okay, I think I got back. Hopefully, with you stopping to interact with the chat, they consider it for use constructive. Way to go, Dom. Gosh. Fail. Just tell you two I'm reading for the mentally challenged. I am going to skip the conversation you two were having. Static's girlfriend in the chat. Mini elephant sneezes got to be adorable. That's for damn sure. Oh, yeah. Let me check the poll. You want me to read it, huh? 7 votes. So for anyone that might have come in, like, may contain traces of seafood. Welcome. There is a poll if you haven't voted. There's like charts and stuff in this book, or like lists where it might be a list of jobs for people at the island and the names of those people across from it. Would you rather I show them to you or just read through them really quickly? If it's an actual like Venn diagram, or I don't remember what the statistical chart is called, but it's a chart, I'll just show them to you. But anything where like I could potentially be reading names and such, that's what the poll is for. I'll keep it open for a little bit, maybe till the end of the stream, because there's not any more for the rest of the iteration that we are currently in. Ty goes to snow, let him choose. I'll just like put a piece of paper. I could do that. As he's eating his food behind me. No, I was not murdered by my cat. Hey, Mud Crab, how's it going? Just woke up, did ya? Way off on the spelling. What spelling are you speaking of? Typing of? Fractured? You're so ridiculous, Shock. Grant's a bigot. I think Gennaro's more of the bigot. You should have said I is smart here, Dom. But nice try. Yeah, okay, so I saw this when I made the comment about the lawyer. So now I'm super curious how all that works. Because I've been thinking in my head with his backstory stuff, like he has a family and whatnot. So now I'm wondering what's gonna happen, which is fun. I like it. I've heard people find the kids in the book, you know. Oh, this is for Dom. Gotcha. I don't know plain lingo, Mud Crab. Your suspension of disbelief is broken. I don't know. Are you just playing the game of semantics? Oh God, now everybody's asking fractured questions. Static, you're such a smartass. A rim shot sound bit. I'll figure it out. I'll figure out my Stream Deck someday. Although Stream Decks work in StreamYard, right? Whatever. I don't know how this crap works. I don't know where this comment came through, so I'm not sure what your meaning may contain traces of seafood. Yes, Dodson is a dick. So the spelling of this is inaccurate to how his name is said. It's like there's a silent G in between the D and the S. And so it throws me off every time I have to read his name because I want to say like Dogson or Dodgson instead of Dodson. It's interesting. Yeah, see, I had my doubts there too. A Stegosaurus would be cool to have. Yes. Yeah. I don't like when there's missing commas. Commas tell you where to pause and what inflection to put on the sentence. Drives me batty. Okay, wait. This is set post 1987, and the aircraft is a Grumman Gulfstream 2. Hopefully I'm saying that properly. So they can buy an island, but not a current business jet. I don't know. I got nothing. Between you and Mudcrab, you guys figure that out. And anyone else who knows planes and aircrafts in chat. Hello, your average Patriot nerd. How's it going? Dotson. We have Dotson here. Hopefully you're driving safely, as usual. And welcome. Yeah, I found that interesting as well. But I mean, even in the movie, they're at like a restaurant. But at least they were not in a major city / airport in the movie. It was a remote area where no one would actually care. I did find it interesting. They're talking about this. Abe! Abe! How's it going? Welcome. Dang, you guys are nitpicking. It's like, okay, like I can control who's in chat. Oh, I guess I probably could, but I wouldn't do that to you guys. I'm not going to acknowledge that, Abe, regarding Kanye. Shock's your girlfriend. He was in chat with you. Yes, it is a YouTube poll. Can you do polls in? I don't know how to do them in Rumble if you can. Pop out chat. I have not figured out Rumble, and I am not a tech. I'm like a mid-tech savvy person. So I help the people who have zero tech experience. And I just absorb the information that I can from my tech savvy people, such as my brother. I will figure out Rumble stuff at some point. The good thing is I leave it open or leave it up so you guys can watch it after the fact. You were up at 4:30 for a different stream. Do you ever sleep? I do. I don't have it set up. My brother got it for me for Christmas, I believe. I think. Or my birthday. I can't remember. Surprised no one commented on the person sitting down and how their feet were. You know what, Dom? I don't fully believe you. There are seats of sorts where you could probably have your feet dangle. They're not common, but I think it's possible for you. I'll figure it out, Shock, I promise. Okay, you two fight it out. Mud crab and seafood. Yes, that girlfriend. Do Rumble this weekend. I don't know what you mean by that. We will discuss. What, figuring out Rumble? I'm not going to tell him this, Mudcrab. If he wants to see stuff like that, he can come into the chat on his own. Yeah, the chat is starting to look a lot like Beelzebub, isn't it? The Legion grows. Sleep is really munted. I see a doctor about my energy levels, but he would only ask if I had given up drinking Coke. Ah, I see. How did that even come up at all? Was this in TFA? I haven't been in there for a while. I'm assuming it wasn't Gronking because Grant's not in there that frequently. I wonder where the second iteration is going to leave off. I'm going to finish that before the evening is over. And then we can start up with the third iteration next week. So let's find out. I'm going to have fun with the next chapter. Malcolm. Shortly before midnight, he stepped on the plane at the Dallas airport, a tall, thin, balding man of 35, dressed entirely in black. Black shirt, black trousers, black socks, black sneakers. Ah, Dr. Malcolm, Hammond said, smiling with forced graciousness. Malcolm grinned. Hello, John. Yes, I am afraid your old nemesis is here. Malcolm shook hands with everyone, saying quickly, Ian Malcolm, how do you do? I do maths. He struck Grant as being more amused by the outing than anything else. Certainly Grant recognized his name. Ian Malcolm was one of the most famous of the new generation of mathematicians who were openly interested in how the real world works. These scholars broke with the cloistered tradition of mathematics in several important ways. For one thing, they used computers constantly, a practice traditional mathematicians frowned on. For another, they worked almost exclusively with nonlinear equations in the emerging field called chaos theory. For a third, they appeared to care that their mathematics described something that actually existed in the real world. And finally, as if to emphasize their emergence from academia into the world, they dressed and spoke with what one senior mathematician called a deplorable excess of personality. In fact, they often behaved like rock stars. Malcolm sat in one of the padded chairs. The stewardess asked him if he wanted a drink. He said, Diet Coke, shaken, not stirred. Humid Dallas air drifted through the open door. Ellie said, Isn't it a little warm for black? You're extremely pretty, Dr. Sattler, he said. I could look at your legs all day. But no, as a matter of fact, black is an excellent color for heat. If you remember your black body radiation, Black is actually best in heat. Efficient radiation. In any case, I wear only 2 colors, black and gray. Ellie was staring at him, her mouth open. These colors are appropriate for any occasion, Malcolm continued, and they go well together. Should I mistakenly put on a pair of gray socks with my black trousers? But don't you find it boring to wear only 2 colors? Not at all. I find it liberating. I believe my life has value, and I don't want to waste it thinking about clothing, Malcolm said. I don't want to think about what I will wear in the morning. Truly, can you imagine anything more boring than fashion? Professional sports, perhaps. Grown men swatting little balls while the rest of the world pays money to applaud. But on the whole, I find fashion even more tedious than sports. He's losing points. Just saying. Dr. Malcolm, Hammond explained, is a man of strong opinions. And mad as a hatter, Malcolm said cheerfully. But you must admit these are non-trivial issues. We live in a world of frightful givens. It is given that you will behave like this, given that you will care about that. No one thinks about the givens. Isn't it amazing? In the information society, nobody thinks. We expected to banish paper, but we actually banished thought. Hammond turned to Gennaro and raised his hands. You invited him. And a lucky thing, too, Malcolm said, because it sounds as if you have a serious problem. We have no problem, Hammond said quickly. I always maintained this island would be unworkable, Malcolm said. I predicted it from the beginning. He reached into a soft leather briefcase, and I trust by now we all know what the eventual outcome is going to be. You're going to have to shut the thing down. Shut it down, Hammond said angrily. This is ridiculous. Malcolm shrugged, indifferent to Hammond's outburst. I've brought copies of my original paper for you to look at, he said. The original consultancy paper I did for InGen. The mathematics are a bit sticky, but I can walk you through it. Are you leaving now? I have some phone calls to make, Hammond said, and went into the adjoining cabin. Well, it's a long flight, Malcolm said to the others. At least my paper will give you something to do. The plane flew through the night. Grant knew that Ian Malcolm had his share of detractors, and he could understand why some found his style too abrasive and his applications of chaos theory too glib. Grant thumbed through the paper, glancing at the equations. Gennaro said, Your paper concludes that Hammond's island is bound to fail? Correct. Because of chaos theory? Correct. To be more precise, because of the behavior of the system in phase space. Gennaro tossed the paper aside and said, Can you explain this in English? Surely, Malcolm said. Let's see where we have to start. You know what a nonlinear equation is? No. Strange attractors? No. All right, Malcolm said. Let's go back to the beginning. He paused, staring at the ceiling. Physics has had great success at describing certain kinds of behavior. Planets in orbit, spacecraft going to the moon, pendulums and springs and rolling balls, that sort of thing. The regular movement of objects. These are described by what are called linear equations. And mathematicians can solve those equations easily. We've been doing it for hundreds of years. Okay, Gennaro said. But there is another kind of behavior which physics handles badly. For example, anything to do with turbulence, water coming out of a spout, air moving over an airplane wing, weather, blood flowing through the heart. Turbulent events are described by nonlinear equations. They're hard to solve. In fact, they're usually impossible to solve. So physics has never understood this whole class of events until about 10 years ago. The new theory that describes them is called chaos theory. Chaos theory originally grew out of attempts to make computer models of weather in the 1960s. Weather is a big, complicated system, namely the Earth's atmosphere as it interacts with the land and the sun. The behavior of this big, complicated system always defied understanding, so naturally we couldn't predict weather. But what the early researchers learned from computer models was that even if you could understand it, you still couldn't predict it. Weather prediction is absolutely impossible. The reason is that the behavior of the system is sensitively dependent on initial conditions. Is that what meteorologists use to, defend the fact that they suck at predicting weather? It's awful in Colorado, I'm just saying. You lost me, Gennaro said. If I use a cannon to fire a shell of a certain weight at a certain speed and a certain angle of inclination, And if I then fire a second shell with almost the same weight, speed, and angle, what will happen? The two shells will land at almost the same spot. Right, Malcolm said. That's linear dynamics. Okay. But if I have a weather system that I start up with a certain temperature and a certain wind speed and a certain humidity, and if I then repeat it with almost the same temperature, wind, and humidity, the second system will not behave almost the same. It'll wander off and rapidly will become very different from the first. Thunderstorms instead of sunshine. That's nonlinear dynamics. They are sensitive to initial conditions. Tiny differences become amplified. I think I see, Gennaro said. The shorthand is the butterfly effect. A butterfly flaps its wings in Peking in China, and weather in New York is different. So chaos is all just random and unpredictable, Gennaro said. Is that it? No, Malcolm said. We actually find hidden regularities within the complex variety of a system's behavior. That's why chaos has now become a very broad theory that's used to study everything from the stock market to rioting crowds to brain waves during epilepsy. Any sort of complex system where there is confusion and unpredictability, we can find an underlying order. Okay? Okay, Gennaro said. But what is this underlying order?
What? I am reading. You want to say hi? Come here.
He'll jump up if he wants to. He wanted to say hi.
Okay.
Lay down. Okay, Gennaro said, but what is this underlying order? It's essentially characterized by the movement of the system within phase space, Malcolm said. Jesus, Gennaro said, all I want to know is why you think Hammond's Island can't work. I understand, Malcolm said. I'll get there. Chaos theory says two things. First, that complex systems like weather have an underlying order. Second, the reverse of that simple systems can produce complex behavior. For example, pool balls. You hit a pool ball and it starts to carom off the sides of the table. In theory, that's a fairly simple system, almost a Newtonian system. Isaac Newton, Newtonian. Since you can know the force imparted by the ball and the mass of the ball, and you can calculate the angles at which it will strike the walls, you can predict the future behavior of the ball. In theory, you could predict the behavior of the ball far into the future as it keeps bouncing from side to side. You could predict where it will end up 3 hours from now, in theory. Okay, Gennaro nodded. But in fact, Malcolm said, it turns out you can't predict more than a few seconds into the future because almost immediately very small effects, imperfections in the surface of the ball, tiny indentations in the wood of the table, start to make a difference. And it doesn't take long before they overpower your careful calculations. So it turns out that this simple system of a pool ball on a table has unpredictable behavior. Okay. And Hammond's project, Malcolm said, is another apparently simple system, animals within a zoo environment, that will eventually show unpredictable behavior. You know this because of theory, Malcolm said. But hadn't you better see the island to see what he's actually done? No. That is quite unnecessary. The details don't matter. Theory tells me that the island will quickly proceed to behave in unpredictable fashion. And you're confident of your theory. Oh, yes, Malcolm said, totally confident. He sat back in the chair. There is a problem with that island. It is an accident waiting to happen. Isla Nublar. With a whine, the rotors began to swing in circles overhead, casting shadows on the runway of San Jose Airport. Grant listened to the crackle in his earphones as the pilot talked to the tower. They had picked up another passenger in San Jose, a man named Dennis Nedry, who had flown in to meet them. He was fat and sloppy, eating a candy bar, and there was sticky chocolate on his fingers and flecks of aluminum foil on his shirt. Nedry had mumbled something about doing computers on the island and hadn't offered to shake hands. Through the plexi bubble, missing comma, Grant watched the airport concrete drop away beneath his feet, and he saw the shadow of the helicopter racing along as they went west toward the mountains. It's about a 40-minute trip, Hammond said from one of the rear seats. Grant watched the low hills rise up, and then they were passing through intermittent clouds, breaking out into sunshine. The mountains were rugged, though he was surprised at the amount of deforestation, acre after acre of denuded, eroded hills. Costa Rica, Hammond said, has better population control than other countries in Central America. But even so, the land is badly deforested. Most of this is within the last 10 years. They came down out of the clouds on the other side of the mountains, and Grant saw the beaches of the west coast. They flashed over a small coastal village. Bahia Anasco, the pilot said, fishing village. He pointed north. Up the coast there, you see the Cabo Blanco Preserve. They have beautiful, beautiful beaches. The pilot headed straight out over the ocean. The water turned green and then deep aquamarine. The sun shone on the water. It was about 10 in the morning. Just a few minutes now, Hammond said, and we should be seeing Isla Nublar. Isla Nublar, Hammond explained, was not a true island. Rather, it was a seamount, a volcanic upthrusting of rock from the ocean floor. Its volcanic origins can be seen all over the island, Hammond said. There are steam vents in many places, and the ground is often hot underfoot because of this. Because of this, and also because of prevailing currents, Isla Nublar lies in a foggy area. As we get there, you will see. There we are. The helicopter rushed forward low to the water. Ahead, Grant saw an island, rugged and craggy, rising sharply from the ocean. Christ, it looks like Alcatraz, Malcolm said. Its forested slopes were wreathed in fog, giving the island a mysterious appearance. Much larger, of course, Hammond said, 8 miles long and 3 miles wide at the widest point. In total, some 22 square miles, making it the largest private animal preserve in North America. The helicopter began to climb and headed toward the north end of the island. Grant was trying to see through the dense fog. It's not usually this thick, Hammond said. He sounded worried. At the north end of the island, the hills were highest, rising more than 2,000 feet above the ocean. The tops of the hills were in fog, but Grant saw rugged cliffs and crashing ocean below. The helicopter climbed above the hills. Unfortunately, Hammond said, we have to land on the island. I don't like to do it because it disturbs the animals, and it's sometimes a bit thrilling. Hammond's voice cut off as the pilot said, starting our descent now. Hang on, folks. The helicopter started down, and immediately they were blanketed in fog. Grant heard a repetitive electronic beeping through his earphones, but he could see nothing at all. Then he began dimly to discern the green branches of pine trees reaching through the mist. Some of the branches were close. How the hell is he doing this? Malcolm said, but nobody answered. The pilot swung his gaze left, then right, looking at the pine forest. The trees were still close. The helicopter descended rapidly. Jesus, Malcolm said. The beeping was louder. Grant looked at the pilot. He was concentrating. Grant glanced down and saw a giant glowing fluorescent cross beneath the plexi bubble at his feet. There were flashing lights at the corners of the cross. The pilot corrected slightly and touched down on a helipad. The sound of the rotors faded and died. Grant sighed and released his seatbelt. We have to come down fast that way, Hammond said, because of the wind shear. There is often bad wind shear on this peak, and, well, we're safe. Someone was running up to the helicopter, a man with a baseball cap and red hair. He threw open the door and said cheerfully, Hi, I'm Ed Regis. Welcome to Isla Nublar, everybody, and watch your step, please. A narrow path wound down the hill. The air was chilly and damp. As they moved lower, the mist around them thinned, and Grant could see the landscape better. It looked, he thought, rather like the Pacific Northwest, the Olympic Peninsula. That's right, Regis said. Primary ecology is deciduous rainforest, rather different from the vegetation on the mainland, which is more classical rainforest. But this is a microclimate that only occurs at elevation, on the slopes of the northern hills. The majority of the island is tropical. Down below, they could see the white roofs of large buildings nestled among the planting. Grant was surprised. The construction was elaborate. They moved lower, out of the mist, and now he could see the full extent of the island stretching away to the south. As Regis had said, it was mostly covered in tropical forest. To the south, rising above the palm trees, Grant saw a single trunk with no leaves at all, just a big curving stump. Then the stump moved and twisted around to face the new arrivals. Grant realized that he was not seeing a tree at all. He was looking at the graceful, curving neck of an enormous creature rising 50 feet into the air. He was looking at a dinosaur. Welcome. My God, Ellie said softly. They were all staring at the animal above the trees. My God. Her first thought was that the dinosaur was extraordinarily beautiful. Books portrayed them as oversized, dumpy creatures, but this long-necked animal had a gracefulness, almost a dignity about its movements. And it was quick. There was nothing lumbering or dull in its behavior. The sauropod peered alertly at them and made a low trumpeting sound, rather like an elephant. A moment later, a second head rose above the foliage, and then a third and a fourth. My God, Ellie said again. Gennaro was speechless. He had known all along what to expect. He had known about it for years, but he had somehow never believed it would happen, and now he was shocked into silence. The awesome power of the new genetic technology, which he had formerly considered to be just so many words in an overwrought sales pitch, the power suddenly became clear to him. These animals were so big. They were enormous, big as a house, and so many of them. Actual damned dinosaurs, just as real as you could want. Gennaro thought, we are going to make a fortune on this place. A fortune. He hoped to God the island was safe. Grant stood on the path on the side of the hill with the mist on his face, staring at the gray necks craning above the palms. He felt dizzy, as if the ground were sloping away steeply. He had trouble getting his breath because he was looking at something he had never expected to see in his life, yet he was seeing it. The animals in the mist were perfect apatosaurs, medium-sized sauropods. His stunned mind made academic associations. North American herbivores, late Jurassic horizon, commonly called brontosaurs, first discovered by E.D. Cope in Montana in 1876. Specimens associated with Morrison Formation strata in Colorado, Utah, and Oklahoma. Recently, Berman and McIntosh had reclassified it a Diplodocus based on skull appearance. Traditionally, Brontosaurus was thought to spend most of its time in shallow water, which would help support its large bulk. Although this animal was clearly not in the water, it was moving much too quickly, the head and neck shifting above the palms in a very active manner, a surprisingly active manner. Grant began to laugh. What is it? Hammond said, worried. Is something wrong? Grant shook his head and continued to laugh. He couldn't tell them that what was funny was that he had seen the animal for only a few seconds, but he had already begun to accept it and to use his observations to answer long-standing questions in the field. He was still laughing as he saw a fifth and a sixth neck crane up above the palm trees. The sauropods watched the people arrive. They reminded Grant of oversized giraffes. They had the same pleasant, rather stupid gaze. I take it they're not animatronic, Malcolm said. They're very lifelike. Yes, they certainly are, Hammond said. Well, they should be, shouldn't they? From the distance, they heard the trumpeting sound again. First one animal made it, and then the others joined in. That's their call, Ed Regis said, welcoming us to the island. Grant stood and listened for a moment, entranced. You probably want to know what happens next, Hammond was saying, continuing down the path. We've scheduled a complete tour of the facilities for you and a trip to see the dinosaurs in the park later this afternoon. I'll be joining you for dinner, and we'll answer any remaining questions you may have then. Now, if you'll go with Mr. Regis. The group followed Ed Regis toward the nearest buildings. Over the path, a crude hand-painted sign read, Welcome to Jurassic Park. Well, that is kind of a perfect place to stop, isn't it? What do you guys think? I was picturing, as my brain pictures when they were landing, how it was shown in the movie. It was very similar, and I enjoyed that. Ah, I see. How'd that go? I know you were worried about it. I kind of forgot, and you didn't tell me that it was already happening. Just saying. As long as you don't give up. Yeah. Well, Jack tends to be funny in general, so that doesn't surprise me. Uh, 20 more pages and a week, Dom. Oh, you hated Malcolm in the book? His arc is different from the movie and becomes so fucking annoying. Couldn't wait for him to die. Interesting. He's that different? So I take it you prefer Ian in the movie. I mean, so far, he's kind of similar. Looks slightly different. Slightly. Book Malcolm is king. Okay, so we got fight it out in the chat. Even though you're in different chats, you could still do it. I don't know how black body radiation works at all, so I believed it. I don't know what that means, Shock. So moving on. Yeah, they're never going to be able to predict weather. I mean, okay, I shouldn't say never. There are ways to predict it, but it's still never perfect. That's what I'm going to say. Thanks, Legatus. It'll be either warm or cold, sunny or cloudy, dry or wet, somewhere in the world. I'm not going to be murdered. They're not harbingers of chaos theory. Seriously, really, Abe. No, not more. I have to have some sort of structure to this. 2 to 2.5 hours is long enough. Especially because I used to only go like an hour and a half when I first started. That was a while ago. But I also just enjoy reading, so I kind of just upped it. I also prefer the dinosaur reveal in the movie compared to the book. That's definitely how I feel on it as well. Using the frog DNA to turn the freaking dinosaurs gay. It's good music to have in your head for you people who can hear things in your head. So the fat guy is with him in the helicopter ride in the book, but in the movie he never meets Grant. Did he never meet Grant in the movie? Really? Are you sure about that? Yeah, how can I forget a stream that randomly turns up and disappears? I don't know, Mudcrab. You tell me. Ah, well, thank you. I appreciate you not spoiling it. Say his rants are much better, and they dumbed him down, in my opinion, in the movie versus the book. Well, I could see why they did that. It's kind of a requirement because speaking as someone who is not a mathematician and never in her life ever would have wanted nor been close to being one, I need things dumbed down for maths, as he said it. And I say it sometimes too. Book Malcolm goes on and on about chaos theory, predicted everything, and how he's so right. So he's got a chip on his shoulder. Yes, he definitely would be the guy in chat writing sports ball, if he were even in a sports chat at all. Actually, I think he probably would be in there just to be doing that. Never did Ned and Grant meet. Really? Now I just have to rewatch it. Oh, darn. Interesting. Well, I stand corrected. Dom, you were correct. A whole cookie, Abe. How dare you? And you didn't share? Yeah, Ned was already on the island. But I swear to God, is Nedry the only one that Grant didn't meet? And vice versa? Of like the main characters. Obviously, there's going to be people that didn't matter. Yes, it is. I am a language person, not a math and science person. Not my favorite side of the brain. Yeah, I would blame Kenzo too. I would too. It's hard not to hear John Williams' score in certain places when you're reading. Yeah, sure. For you people who can hear things in your head. Hold your britches, sir. You're a jinx. I will question you whenever and however I feel. Well, that's just rude. Didn't your mother teach you to share? Okay. Everybody wants me to read the stuff instead of show it. Duly noted. Ending poll shortly. Now. I shall read them if they come up again, which watch it be a completely moot poll where there's never anything like that again. And it's all just charts that you guys need to see because me explaining it would be ridiculous. That'd be kind of funny to me. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining me. You guys are awesome. Don't forget to hit the like and share it out there if you think anybody will enjoy it. Don't forget to subscribe. And I hope everybody has a good evening. I'm going to go make dinner for myself. Yes, I'm calling you a jinx, Dom. And yeah, thanks again for joining me. You guys are the best. I seriously appreciate you. And let me see, you guys threw in a couple of comments. Engineering background. So in an engineering mindset, you make assumptions about various systems based on established principles and work from there. I'm a very black and white type person, so making assumptions on things for things is not my forte. I don't like it. Yeah, thanks for showing up for it. I appreciate it. All of you. You guys are awesome. Everybody who is here live, everybody who watches it afterwards, you guys are the best. I love doing this. I'm really glad I decided to. And yeah, thank you again. Yes, don't forget, Dermy is going to be playing Outlast this Saturday because he lost a bet with me. And it's going to be so much fun. I'm going to enjoy it thoroughly. But yes, catch me on this man's channel tomorrow at 7 p.m. Mountain Time for the weekend pregame. That's where I'm going to be next. Otherwise, follow me on Twitter. That's where I post everything. And yeah, love you guys. Bye.